November 11th meeting to order. Before we do roll call, I just want to point out, today is Veterans Day. My grandfather served in 9 battles in World War I, and my father enlisted out of high school with a close friend here, Phil Johnson, in the Navy in 1945, and he was in World War II. We had one employee, part-time employee, Tom Russo, that I believe served 12 years in, I think it's 12, might be more.
I'm not sure the duration.
It was 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the Navy. And I would just like to thank them and all of their veterans for their service to the United States of America. With that, I would now do roll call.
Chairperson Beecham.
Here.
Vice Chair Founder.
Here.
Board Member Cadwalder.
Here.
Board Member Crawford.
Here.
Board Member Schraub.
Here.
All present.
Okay, approval of the agenda. Any changes or anything?
No, sir.
I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Move to approve the agenda.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the minutes from the October 14th, 2025 regular board meeting.
Move to approve the October board minutes.
I'll support it.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Excuse me, safety moment.
All right, I'm gonna hand it over to Zach. He's got the safety moment this month.
November.
Yeah, you can do a Thanksgiving.
Right into the deep fryer.
But it's not like,
Yeah, it's not the greatest slide.
Hey,
I thought you were doing that on purpose.
no, I was.
Pretty funny.
Some safety tips, cooking the safe cooking practices, thaw the turkey in the refrigerator, not on the counter to prevent bacteria growth. Avoid cross contamination, keeping raw turkey and its juices away from other food. Child and pet safety, keep children and pets away from the cooking areas to prevent accidents and burns. Secure cords from appliances to prevent tripping hazards. Deep fryer safety. If using a turkey fryer, do so outdoors away from buildings and flammable material. Thoroughly dry the turkey before rolling into the hot oil to prevent splattering. Also, make sure your oil is low enough that you're not going to overflow it when you put your turkey in. Food handling, wash your hands frequently, especially when handling raw meat and poultry. Use separate cutting boards and utensils for raw meat and vegetables to prevent cross contaminations. Travel safety of traveling, ensure your vehicle is properly maintained before hitting the road. Check weather and road conditions in advance and drive cautiously. Post-meal cleanup spills promptly to prevent slips and falls. Dispose of food waste properly to avoid attracting pests.
Wow,
Very good.
Some
that's good.
good reminders for November. I think we'll all be eating a little bit later this month. Thank you, Zach.
Don't plug 6 hot crock pots into a power strip.
That's, yes, that's a whole other set of safety advice. Don't burn your house down.
Okay, public comment. Any public? Hearing none, we'll move on to action items.
All right, so the first action item is review of potential adoption of 2026 electric rates. There are 2 pieces of this. There's going to be the rate design, and then there's also going to be the EWR rates, energy waste reduction rates. We've talked about that. The board's approved the energy waste reduction plan that will ultimately be submitted to the MPSC for review. But we are joined today by Jillian Jersick. She has been here before, so I'm going to pretty well just hand it over to her. We've worked closely on this. Megan and Julie have been involved throughout the process, but We have a long history with UFS. I could go through the preamble, but you've all heard it a few times. We've got a great relationship with UFS and Jillian, and here to help educate us all.
Thank you. Yes, and you guys have worked so hard with me, especially this turn with the EWR, and we'll walk through some of that. But thank you so much for having me. And I'll just let you know when to push report. Okay, perfect. So most of you know who I am. My name is Jill. I've been with UFS since 2013. So before that, I was a high school math teacher. So there's some color coding in the presentation because school habits die hard. But we do essentially 3 studies all rolled into one. And the first, and really where we're going to focus today, is on the financial projection. The financial projection is a piece of the rate study that we update every year. And what's so wonderful about working with you guys is that this has been kind of our pattern for many years. So I have history going back to 2001. We don't use all of that history when we look forward. We really just focus on the most recent 6 years of data, but it's just really cool to see how those financial trends have changed over the years, and to be able to look so closely each year at a projection that was just completed and then against the fiscal year. So for example, this year, I looked back to last year's study at the 2025 projection, and I could compare it to your 2025 actuals. And because we've done that year after year after year, I see my projections getting closer and closer and closer to what actually occurs, which is, it's really, really neat and really cool to see. So with the financial projection, we're looking at that historical data, we're looking at the trending, and then we're also comparing your budget to come up with a projection for the next 5 years. But really we're focused on what's going to happen in the upcoming fiscal year. What do we need to do with our revenue in order to support the expenses that we have, to support our capital plan, and to support the 3 key financial metrics that we look at. So you'll see in the next slide, we look at what's called debt coverage ratio, which means, am I cash flowing enough from my operations to make my debt payment? You guys don't have a lot of debt, so that one's no problem. We have our minimum cash balance, which is the one we've been trying to kind of build up and work on establishing a stronger cash balance. And we have a minimum formula that we go through to help us decide how much cash is reasonable to maintain. And then the third target is operating income, which always sounds strange when we're talking to municipal utilities because, well, we shouldn't make a profit if we're non-for-profit. But there's 2 things our traditional cost of service revenue requirement doesn't include that we still have to pay for. So we still have to fund interest expense on debt. That falls what we call it below the line, so it doesn't make it into our cost of service. The other piece is the inflationary increase in the replacement cost of assets. Electric utilities are very infrastructure intensive. And so financially what happens with that infrastructure is, say today I put an asset into service and it costs me $1 million and it has a 10-year useful life. What's going to happen financially is over that 10 years, I'm going to book $100,000 of depreciation expense. So that's the financial recognition of my asset wearing down. That's going to make it into my rates. So that at the end of the 10 years, I'm going to recover $1 million to go out and pay for my replacement asset. But the problem with that is in 2035, when I go to replace my asset, it's going to cost something more. So that operating income is including interest expense on debt and then the inflationary increase in the cost of all of my infrastructure replacement. And with those 3 targets compiled together, we develop the increase in the revenue needed for the next year. And so what you're going to see is that we are proposing a 1.6% adjustment, which is a little bit higher than we were anticipating last year when I came to talk with you. And 0.5% of that is for your distribution side adjustments, which is very in line with our past study. So that encompasses inflation, increases in labor, funding of distribution side costs. The 1.1% of additional increase is driven by this EWR program. So that program costs, over the 4 years, we looked at what that average cost would be. And that put a 1.1% upward pressure on our landfill needs. And I'll show you that as well and how that worked with our financials. So that's the financial projection piece. Now, the cost of service study was done in 2022, so we'll be looking to potentially update the cost of service either next year or the year following. But we use the direction from the cost of service study to help us decide of that 1.6% adjustment, what rate classes need to go up or down in relation to that average increase. And then the third study here is our rate design. And we do have the rate design of a sample of it completed if that's something you wanted to look at today. But I'll leave it to Charlie to decide how. We just wanted to have it prepped for you if you wanted to look at that and in more detail today. Okay, we can go to the next slide. And I want to ask if there's any questions before we get into the details. Okay. All right. So our study is built on assumptions, and I want to walk through those assumptions with you. Inflation, CPI has been trending over the last 18 months between like a 2.2 and a 3%. So we use 3% inflation over the next 5 years. And this really impacts a smaller portion of your expense pie, if you want to think of it like a pie chart. A large portion of that pie is your power supply cost. So inflation is only affecting the expenses that are not power supply related. The next two columns, growth and purchase power change, are power supply related and come from MPPA. So they provide these projections. And if I were you sitting and looking at this, I would say, well, that growth looks a little strange, and that 15.9% looks a little high, and I would agree with you. And the growth side is explainable. So what I've been kind of noticing as a pattern with your usage is, I think because you're so industrial driven, we'll see a couple years of higher growth and then a year of more like flat or maybe a slight decline in growth. And I think that's just driven by the cyclical pattern in the industrial usage because so much of the revenue is industrial driven. And then the remainder of the projection is right around that 1%. The purchase power cost. So when we're looking at this column, what I do is I take the total purchase power cost and I divide by the kilowatt hour units to get an average cost per kilowatt hour. So this is showing me the change in that average cost. MPPA tends to be conservative in the upcoming fiscal year. So this is a pattern that I've noticed across all of our Michigan clients that in the upcoming fiscal year, it looks like the average cost is going to be higher than what's actually been realized historically. So last year, I looked back to MPPA's projection and then what we actually saw, and there was a difference of about 8%. So this is not too much of a concern because you have your power cost adjustment. But I didn't want you to get worried about this percentage because if we did see those power costs starting to go up by 16%, we'd probably hear from you guys and want to take a look at how this is going to affect bills. So I don't want, this is actual from NPPA, but I don't think it's too big of a cause for concern. Investment income super small. This is just for cash you have in the bank. And then my capital improvement program, we've used 1.1 million historically. We bumped it up a little bit in that last year, just a planning for that future cost. And then the last three columns have to do with your equipment replacement fund, which is essentially a cash transfer from operations to be earmarked for things like trucks and more equipment related items that are needed. So the first column there is showing the amount of cash in that bucket. And then the middle column is showing what we're expecting to spend out of that fund each year. Oh, pardon me, is showing the balances, what we're transferring out, and then the last column is the actual spending in that account. Questions on assumptions?
Can we just go back for a minute? So what in this, I'm curious, what's I know the digger truck falls in there someplace, but so what are you proposing? What's the 451? What's the 125? What's the 485? I'm just figuring the 485 is the digger truck.
485 is the digger. The 451 is made up of, oh, let me just pull it up real quick.
This is gonna be a question, and I looked it up, and I didn't know what it was.
Tree, yeah, I'm saying the timing is off on some of these. 26 is that,
Excavator,
it's
there's a skid steer in there.
skid steer is gonna be in there,
Yes.
the
It doesn't have to
forestry
be,
truck.
I'm just
what it's,
just in my mind, what are the
here we go.
extra pieces of equipment that?
Yeah, forestry trucks hitting this year, skid steer, and then timing wise, we're still nailing down timing, but the software conversion that we're gonna talk about next
Right, okay.
is flowing through the equipment.
So that's
replacement fund.
the equipment,
Yeah,
okay,
and then next year, it's a more, the 125 is another contribution to the software conversion. And then you get out a little further, that 425 for a digger truck. And then there's also the Mini X is included in that 485. And then when you get beyond that, you start getting into some small pickup truck replacement. Tony's truck's gonna be due in 29. And then you go a little further out at 15,000 scissor lift replacement. So
okay,
the further years out are subject to change for sure.
Right.
And then in the earlier years, timing is going to change for sure. Especially when it comes to just not knowing exactly where some of the software costs are, where they're gonna land in which fiscal year
Right.
until we develop that firm timeline.
okay, thank you.
Okay, so this is our financial projection if we made no adjustments to your rates and your revenue. The way to read this table, I added this column this year to show when the rates would be effective. So all of my projections are integrating this timing because it's different from your fiscal year. So your fiscal year begins in July 1st, and it ends June 30th. So, so there's a 6-month timing difference between the two dates, and the models adjust for that. So with no revenue adjustments, debt coverage ratio, again, are you cash flowing enough from operations to make your debt payment? We target a 1.4, and you're at the very tail end of this debt schedule. So we're showing a very, very high debt coverage ratio. So no issues there. And in many ways, debt coverage is our floor when we go to build a rate track. We have to meet debt coverage. Now, the next two columns are showing that target operating income. So if I'm going to fully fund my system replacement costs, my current ratepayers funding the replacement of the infrastructure that they're consuming, I would be needing about 1.1, 1.2 million in operating income. And you can see with no changes, we're pretty good. This is really more of like an upper like boundary. We don't want to exceed that too much. And you can see in the first 2 years, we're looking pretty good, but that slowly starts to fall. So I don't love, I want this to be a little more stable. And the third element in our financial projection is our cash balance. And we've been working really hard to get these cash balances up to the, 120, 130 days, ideally higher. Highest bond rating typically goes to like 150, 200 plus days. So what we identify as a benchmark is a minimum cash. And we want your cash balances above our minimum. And cash, just because of the nature, is going to ebb and flow depending on where you're at in your capital spending, where you're at in your payment of your expenses and your bills, and receiving your revenues from customers. So when we define this minimum, we look at 3 risk areas. Five risk areas. The first, we want you to have cash in the bank to fund that working capital lag. So we use a 45-day working capital lag on your operating expenses to ensure that you can pay your bills in a timely manner. The second area is having cash to pay your debt payment. So you normally make 2 debt payments in a year. You'll make a interest-only payment and a principal and interest payment. So what we're looking at in the minimum is that principal and interest payment together so that you can fund that highest debt payment. The third is your capital improvement program. So we want you to keep 1/5 of that capital improvement program in for each of the 5 years. So we add up the 5-year capital plan, which is 1.1, and then that last year at 1.5, and we take 1/5 of that. Then the really, really big portion of your expense pie is your power supply expense. So to look at the risk associated with paying your power supply bill, we go back, we look at all of your last 12 months of bills. We take the highest month's bill and we put that in the cash pot so that we can ensure you're going to be able to pay your power supply bill. And then the last component, which is a little bit more subjective, is your rainy day fund, is what I say. So we look at your assets and how depreciated the system is. Currently, we're sitting at about 57% depreciated. On average, electric utilities are around 50% depreciated. So if you are around that 15%, we will assign a 2% risk factor. If you're below that, a 1% risk factor. And if you're above that, a 3% risk factor. So we've assigned you a 3% risk factor. What that means is we take your historical cost, multiply by the 3%, and we're putting that in reserve to fund infrastructure in case of a catastrophic event, an ice storm or windstorm, something that we didn't plan for in our capital plan. And adding all of those components up, we come to about 3.5 million. And the reason that's dropping after the first 2 years is because that debt is falling off. So we lose that debt payment in that calculation. And with no rate adjustments, if we just sit where we are, our cash is going to get just up to that minimum in 2028. But to me, that felt a little bit to let it ride and just sit on our assumptions. I wanted to have a little bit more stability, especially considering that my operating income is falling. So we put together a rate plan of a 1.6% overall adjustment. We can go to the next slide. Perfect. So I separated the rate plan because I wanted to show that when I did the initial projection and we looked at everything status quo, so without the EWR program, I was coming up with 0.5% on the distribution side. When I took the expense associated with the EWR program and integrated it into the model, it raised the need for revenue by 1.1%. So, so two separate components, but at the end of the day, the bill impact is still going to be this 1.6%. And in doing that, we are stabilizing operating income, and our cash balances still look very healthy. And I like the cash balances sitting more at the 130 days for the next 2 years. Especially since you come back each year to do an annual update, we'll be able to keep an eye on these cash balances and make sure that the revenue we're expecting to receive for EWR matches the expense of the program. Okay, so I just went through a lot, and I want to pause and ask if you have any questions on the targets or the financial projection, how you feel about the rate plan here.
Do you anticipate or think, so again, I talked to Charlie today. I watch probably too much news and where the political thing is and where, the talking about energy, it just seems like if you're watching the news, we have so much volatile things that are going on, and you anticipate, you just mentioned, yearly, is it easy for us to change semi-annually rates? I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm got a pessimistic view with everything that you're seeing on the news and everything else. And so again, I always want to make sure that we're doing the right thing, that we're not all of a sudden down the road and all of a sudden now we're in a big hole or whatever.
Right. So I will say, having the power cost adjustment is huge.
Okay.
Your power supply expense, I calculated it before I came in here, is 70% of your total operating expenses.
Okay.
So think about a pie chart. That's a huge portion of the pie. And the power cost adjustment, it shares the risk. So you're not 100% putting that on your customers. You would be if you were just floating through the change every single month, but you don't do it that way. You have a rolling average. And so you are slowly, if that power cost is trending up, that's slowly impacting the bills. So we do have a little bit of risk sharing as far as cash. We have to be able to float that differential until it's fully recovered. But because that's such a large part of your expenses and it will be recovered, you have huge stability in your power cost
Okay.
adjustment. And that's where your vulnerability
Makes me feel better, I guess.
Yep, absolutely. And, if you were to have a huge unexpected capital or something, you're so low leverage that you could go out and issue debt to fund something like that if you needed to. The other thing with the EWR, which Charlie brought this up and it was a great thing to look at. If this went away, we could pull those rates or drop them back to what they were for the E&O program and all would be whole. So there's no, this is really a pass through of this program cost.
So will you mention, because I'd like the public to know, so what we're talking about with the EWR is mandated by the government, correct?
Yes, it's the energy waste reduction, so it's the new law goes into effect, new program year goes into effect in January, but it's kind of brief history. We used to be mandated to say 1% of our average sales annually. Then the law sunset for its applicability to municipals and co-ops during the big energy bill rewrite, where we got clean energy requirements, we got renewable requirements. This was another piece that was touched. So why you're seeing such a big increase is that goal jumped from where we no longer have to save 1% annually, you have to save 1.5% annually, which doesn't seem like a big jump, but it's still a 50% increase over what we were previously doing. And at the same time, what qualifies for savings is being updated and modified, and they're stripping out some opportunities. So largely LED lighting. LED lighting is cheap, effective, and results in great energy savings. Well, they're because so many people and so many fixtures have been converted to LED, you're no longer getting the opportunity to claim savings off of LED. So with the law and kind of explaining why that cost is ratcheting up, it's mandated by the government. So we talked during the approval of the plan that, if we didn't take a full cost recovery approach to this, we would ultimately be stripping investments back into the system because we don't have profits. I think that's the important thing to remind the public, remind everybody is, we don't have profits to eat into. Our customers' return on investment is our investment back in the system, our investment in reliability. So we didn't want to subsidize this mandated program because ultimately it would be to the detriment of our system. And that's why when we're working with UFS, we wanted to make sure that if the law does go away, we have a plan to unwind it and allow our customers to realize the savings that comes along with the elimination of the law or modification of the law. We need to stay flexible when it comes to legal or legislative constraints or legislative requirements. Now, the only other thing I want to add to this one slide, don't let the days of cash growing towards the outer years. There's a lot of unknowns in those outer years. And we talked to UFS a little bit. None of this is concrete, but just as a reminder, Casey's looking at evaluating generation asset expansion. We're spending time looking at the transmission line. So we want to reserve debt capacity. So if we need to add generation assets or we need to make big investments into the transmission system or our transmission line, we want to make sure that we're not doing some drastic rate adjustment to support that debt service. So it's also why we engage and work with UFS on an annual basis. Focus obviously more closely on the near term. There's quite a bit more certainty in years 1, 2, 3, but it diminishes, I would say quickly, but there are far more variables that could impact that long-term plan when you get out of years 4 and 5. And specifically here, there's the potential for debt issuances.
Especially when you're looking at electric capital cost. So even looking out here and being at the 193, this makes me comfortable. And it sounds like a lot of cash and it looks like a lot of cash, but to your point, with the different elements of volatility, with the increase in costs of specifically capital, this number is a solid number that if you did have to go out and do a large capital project, you could maybe do 60% debt funded, 40% cash funded. So then you're not having to be, 100% leveraged on a project. So yes, and the fact that you come back year after year is really helpful as well.
Do you have any concerns, Charlotte, with being at 131 days of cash for the first few years, like not pushing that 140 up above it?
No, because really that 140 is by policy, we've adopted that 120, and really where that 140 came from was looking at the most volatile year, how many days of cash eroded through really power supply. But with the power supply or the power cost adjustment, no is the short answer. I can get into a lot of details, but it's not, we would rather take a systematic approach, because if we took a bigger jump in year 1 to address that 131, we're almost looking like, hey, if we don't take on debt at some point, we almost have to reverse roles.
Sure.
So while would I love to see more than 131 in that first day, in that first 2
If we have
years,
something coming up where if we were like a year out from going,
it
doing something with debt,
It would be different.
it would be more of a concern.
But we still are maintaining, and we have the mechanisms in place to make sure that significant volatility in the power supply, that's a temporary challenge. I say it's temporary, you have to look over a long time horizon, but the rating agencies don't necessarily look over a long time horizon. So we are managing somewhat to an audit and making sure that at the time that we have the audit, there's cash there that will support a debt review or a ratings review, things like that. But that 131 doesn't concern me when you look at it in the context of the whole plan.
And if you take into account the capital, if we actually spent that capital in the time frame that I have it in the model, that's the other impact that impacts cash, like to a large extent, is the actual spending on your capital and the timing of that spending. So this is a perfect.
Yeah, and the other piece of that is the big capital spend is, and we'll talk about it next, is the software. We front loaded a lot of those software spends. We think now that, well, when we were working with UFS, we still don't have 100% clarity on implementation dates and when you pay certain charges for the implementation. So from a timing perspective, I would expect some of those larger expenses to push out over a longer time horizon, ultimately resulting in finishing the year with elevated cash levels, especially in year one. Because I don't think we'll have any significant software conversion expenses in this fiscal year. Originally, we modeled it in having some expenses in this year.
Okay.
Not next
No, yeah.
No, we did. Any other questions? Okay. All right. So now I'm going to show you a little bit of how we're going to put the rates together and some of the background then with the 0.5% and the 1.1%. So we're going back to 2022 to look at your cost of service study. So again, we don't update this study every year. This is done every 3 to 5 years. And really what it gives us is direction for the rate design. So at the time in 2022, when we did the cost of service, you would have needed a 7% rate adjustment to fully fund that operating income. And when we look at this table, the way to read it is with that color code. So the residential class is showing that they would have needed a 16.9% adjustment to fully fund the revenue requirement of the residential class. Now, when I compare that percentage back to my system average, it's higher. And so it's higher than I would like it to be, which tells me when I go to do my rate design, residential needs to get a little bit above the system average in order to move them in the direction of cost of service. So the same thing goes for my street lighting and my security lighting. They need a little bit higher than average increase to move toward cost of service. My ones in green, general service, and then my 224, they were really close around that 7%. So they need to get around the system average. And then my ones in blue were below my cost of service percentage, so they can get a little bit less. So it just gives me that direction for when I put the rate design together. Now, the EWR kind of threw a little bit of a wrench into things. So if we go to the next slide, okay, we're going to talk about EWR first, and then then we will get into the difference between the EWR and the distribution side of things. So the EWR program, again, it sounds like you're very familiar with it. It's a state mandated program to incentivize less energy use across the state. And it's split, the way that the program works, it's through MPPA. It's great that you guys are participating in that program. They break the program cost out into residential and commercial, which is nice for me, who is a numbers cost of service person, because it gives me some guidance as to where I need to put the cost when I'm developing these rates. So, looking at your current program, so you have current charges with residential, it's an energy per kWh charge, and for the commercial classes, it's a monthly charge. And the revenue or the program cost as a percentage of revenue for the existing program, 115,000, which is 1% of revenue. The new program is going to cost us 245,000 a year, which is 2.1% of your revenue. So I need to increase my revenues by 1.1% in order to fund the additional cost of the new program. And I think that's really everything on the EWR background. Any questions on that? You guys probably know this program better than I do at this point. Okay, so I wanted to show the impact of the EWR program to the residential class. And the residential class was easy because you're currently charging on a per kWh basis, which just means for every unit of energy, they get charged for energy optimization already. And that current rate is 0.00229. But when I took the new program cost for residential and divided it by the expected kilowatt hours, the new program cost is 0.00339. So I need to increase my existing energy optimization rate by 0.0017. And what that translates to for the average residential user is about $1.15 per month on the bill, which is about a 1% impact. Now, remember, when we looked at the cost of service, it said that they needed to go up a little bit more relative to the system average. So when I add in my distribution side adjustment, they are going to be getting a 1.8% overall. So this here is just showing the impact of the EWR. Okay, the distribution side is going to be a 0.8% increase. And we have, I have a sample of the residential rate in here, so we can look at that impact. Now this slide I really had to study because there's a lot going on, and I wanted to think through how best to explain it. I believe you received a copy of the report as well, so this will hopefully just reiterate what's in the report. But on the commercial side, the commercial program cost was all lumped together into one expense. And you have 4 commercial classes that we had to decide how to break this program cost up between. And so the first class, the general service non-demand, was pretty easy. We wanted to be consistent with the other non-demand class, the residential. So we converted that to a per kWh charge, which really is in line with the intent of the program to lower that kWh use. And we want to charge this on a per kWh basis. So for this class, that made a lot of sense. And when I did the math, the average impact came out to the 1.1%. So their per kWh charge is 0.005311 for that class. But when we were looking at the demand classes, it got a little tricky because when you're charging, the flip side of charging per kWh is that when you have a customer that's a high load factor customer, what that means is, so think about 2 different businesses. You have one business that they operate 5 days a week, and they come on in the morning and turn on all the lights, and they run their business for 1 shift, and then they go home. Okay, so that's their kilowatt hours. You have company B who comes in on Monday and turns on all their machines and all their lights, and they run 3 shifts for 6 days. You have a lot more kWh units that get billed to your customer B than customer A. And so we would earmark customer B as a high load factor customer. So they're using the infrastructure that's been installed to serve them. And what can happen with this type of a charge is if you're charging on pure energy and not considering that demand component, you can overburden a high load factor customer. And we want to be sensitive to that. So a per kWh charge just didn't make sense for these classes of customers. The other issue with the current rate, being a monthly charge, is when I was looking at it on a per kWh basis, you had some customers that were paying 2 cents a kilowatt hour if you took that monthly charge and divided by their average use. And you had some customers that were paying 0.00002 cents per kilowatt hour, just based on the math. And so, so we had all of these different levers that we were trying to balance and get just right to be fair. And so this is what we came up with: a tiered monthly charge. So the first tier here is for anybody in the demand classes that has an average monthly use less than 15,000 kilowatt hours. So we're gonna go and look back 12 months and calculate that average monthly use and decide what tier the customer falls in. And for the customers that fall in tier 1, they would get a monthly EWR of $23, and they would be set at that tier 1 for the next 12 months until we recalculated the average use. And this $23 is consistent with this average kilowatt hour. So when I take that 12,500 kilowatt hours and multiply by the commercial per kilowatt hour rate, I came up with the $23. And so we did that for each tier, then incrementing the monthly charge up based on the average use of the customers that fell under that tier. So the charge increases to the same degree as the average use in each bucket. And so this kind of takes and that 2 cents a kilowatt hour and that 0.00002 cents a kilowatt hour and brings it closer together for everybody without giving, you know, some of the larger customers a $3,500 monthly charge if we were charging all on kilowatt hours. Okay. Does that make sense? And do you have any questions on that? Like, this is a lot to sit on, I know.
I don't know where and when to ask my question because I want you to keep going and you might answer my question.
Oh, just ask it.
But, okay, so on this page right here that says rate design summary, and it says, under the projected revenues under current rates, we'd have revenues of $11,154,612. Under the proposed rates, we'd have a revenue of $11,328,525, which is a difference of $173,913. A few panels back, you quoted $245,000 as that 2026 cost. So I'm wondering where you get to 45 from
Nope.
when this summary right here has.
Yes, so I'm gonna hold on to that and I'm gonna explain that on the next slide.
Okay.
That's a great observation and it's a little bit of a soft spot in our modeling. So, okay, are we okay with this table? Any other questions on EWR?
I understand it. I'm okay with it. I mean,
So I've got some comments on this side. This is a little bit of a tough pill to swallow because it's a drastic change. It's a better way, a more equitable way of distributing this expense across our customers. The challenge that we have is currently customers are capped at $10,000 a year in energy waste reduction incentives. Clearly, you can see the top tier will pay more than what they can even get out of the system or out of the program. That's obviously not desirable. So there will be continued modifications to our EWR program caps, caps will have to get elevated. We're gonna have our own challenges outside of funding it and actually hitting the goals. We expect a lot of challenges, and quite frankly, if I'm a customer, I don't like to see that my charge went from $363 to, $1,400 in a month. I will say we're talking about very large bills here, and I'm sure Jillian will get into it, but this is where there's a lot of pieces that we had to look at. We actually looked, Jillian did the heavy lifting. We looked at there's about 450 customers that fall into these demand rates. We looked at every single customer's ultimate bill impact. One big spreadsheet, and we went through, and we're talking here at a lot of class averages. Yeah, there's some people that fit into the class average, but an average is a amalgamation of a range. And we wanted to make sure that the low end and high end, we're being equitable with actual bill impacts all the way down to individual customers. Again, this is a tough pill to swallow. Yeah, that.
Last column shows, the average bill impact. We ensured that, including the distribution side adjustments in our demand classes, no customer impact was over, I think the highest, 0.1%. So we're really trying to limit the all-in impact. Because yeah, this isn't, I mean, the project was really fun, but this is not fun.
And I will say, we went back and forth on this one probably more than we've ever gone. We had 3 times as many calls as we normally do, explored a lot of different options. The math plays out. Again, this is something we will have a separate, we actually have a meeting Friday already to start discussing, communicating this with customers, starting to discuss how do we engage the business community that's ultimately going to have to fund this. But again, that top tier charge is not something that's all that attractive. But when you look at what it takes, what a $350,000 or 350,000 kilowatt hour bill looks like, we are talking about smaller percentage impacts. It's a big number jump from $363 up to $1,400. But these are customers that do have larger bills, but we also don't want to take that for granted. We recognize that our customers are astute and will be looking at their bills in a line by line basis. And when a charge goes up, 4x, they're going to know. They're going to notice, and we're going to be prepared to proactively communicate that with them, proactively help them get that money back. Because that's the other piece of this, and the message to our customers is the money that they pay into this is accessible. It's not money that comes to us. It does come to us, but it's not funding benefits. It's not funding salaries. It's funding program costs that ultimately put money back in the customer's hands. So we want to make sure we're helping facilitate, and we want our customers to access that money, because that's ultimately how we hit our legal mandate of 1.5% savings. So there's some opportunity to build relationships, opportunity to engage with our customers over this, but we don't, it's not going to be anything our customers are excited to see. Crickets.
Is there a slide with good news on it?
I'll try.
Oh, okay, so that's what I was referencing.
Yes.
So you got to there.
This is and just I'll answer your question off the bat and then get into my spiel. But when we go to set these current rate revenues, because we update every year, I don't ask for the actual billing data. We did on the commercial side for the EWR, but I don't ask for the broken down monthly billing data until we do a full cost of service study. So essentially what happens as we get further away from the cost of service study is that when I'm dealing in percentages to set the rates, this percent adjustment is correct, but these revenues by class are not directly correlated to your most recent fiscal year revenue that came from the billing units in 2025. So this is a soft spot in the modeling that we 100% need to improve, but the percent adjustment should result or will result because I'm looking at your financial projection. So I'm taking those actual 2025 revenues and applying this adjustment. So the soft spot comes just from this calculation here and the relationship to the billing units from 2022.
And I think the other piece of that is we're partially funding, we have a current EWR program.
Oh, yeah, that's the other piece.
That is, we are built into the current rate, so we don't,
Okay,
we
so-
just need to collect the delta between what we're currently collecting and the new program
Yeah,
costs.
okay, so that makes.
Yeah.
That's, okay. I was hoping.
Bringing my grievances here with our modeling.
Oh,
I'm honest. Okay. So with this table, it mirrors the cost of service table. So I tried to keep the color coding consistent so that we can see our residential and our lighting need to go up a little bit more relative to the overall adjustment. My 222 and 223 a little bit less, and my 224, pardon me, right at that cost of service. Now, if you're looking at this column here, you'll notice that that's not totally in line. And that's because of my EWR program. So here's like, I think this is good news. So my EWR program is here. I separated out those adjustments, but when I look at my base rate change by class, it really follows that cost of service guidance on the distribution side, which is really where I want to see directionally moving toward cost of service. I don't want to use this EWR increase for anything other than what it is. So that's going to fall out exactly how the changes between the current EO program and moving into the EWR impacts. But on the distribution side, I have my cost of service direction, which I was really happy with because these three rate classes are all linked. So they have elements that relate back to each other, and it can get kind of tricky to get these three classes all in line. But my 222 and 223 are at 0.3%, and my 224 is like, you know, a little bit higher at 0.4. So I was really pleased. Okay, and rate 130, which is the residential time of use. At the time of the cost of service study, we didn't have that rate. So we do have a rate design for it, but it's not included in this table here. Okay, questions?
So, I mean, we've done the cost of service every 5 years, whatever. So this is before Charlie and before probably a couple of board members that are on here. At one point, we saw that Mark brought to our attention, you know, that certain classes were subsidizing other classes. And we wanted to, there was a group, several board members that at the time wanted to rip the Band-Aid off and go right to getting everybody so that they were all paying their fair share. And it was strongly suggested that that would cause chaos amongst customers and everything. And so we were doing this change over a 5-year plan. And then, you know, then the next 5-year came. Are we ever, I guess my simple question is, are we ever going to get to where cost of service is one group, rate group is not supplementing the other rates? Because we all, I mean, as a board, we just want to pay our fair share, you know, and want to see where one particular group is not subsidizing another particular group. Big question. I mean,
Yeah, no, that's a great question, but it is a tough one because your costs and your environment changes. And every time you have a change, it's going to affect your cost of service. Now, I think when we do the cost of service study again, we are gonna see a tighter grouping. So you're not hopefully gonna see the residential is almost 10% above what the system average is. We may still have a system average of 7%, but I would love to see everybody within, 3%, like, between, 4 and 10%. And seeing a narrowing of that range in increases. So that's the goal directionally, is to keep narrowing the range until we're really close directionally. But nobody charges perfectly cost to serve rates.
Okay.
Okay, so here's a sample of the residential rates. I want to just point out the energy outreach charge for LEO that went into effect last month. So just under $1 for that. Great program that you guys developed to do that and to meet that other state requirement. So the monthly charge is currently $26. And I know that increasing it to $26.83 or $27.78 all in sounds super random. But the reason that I did it this way, it comes back to this energy optimization charge. I don't want to change anything else about the residential energy rate. I want to keep my distribution charge the same, and I want to keep my energy charge the same. And the only thing I want to change is increasing that EWR. So in order to achieve my overall 1.8% revenue adjustment from this class, I needed to do it in my monthly component. And I was really pleased because we looked at the 2022 cost of service study, and I did like a net present value for what the cost of service value would be today under the same assumptions. And it was like the 27, I think it was like 27.85. It was something super, super close to what this charge came out at. So that made me really happy. So on the monthly customer charge, we're really right in line with the cost of service, which is the other piece of the study. It tells us how the components need to be set for each rate class. So,
I believe, we have to charge what we need to be economical and to cover our costs and everything. And so I'm not worried about what our outside DTE consumers, everything, where they're gonna be, because we need to let the chips fall where they may, but because we have no influence or no, we're not worried about what they're doing. We have to worry about what we're doing and our reliability and everything else. But is this, because again, like you and I talked, like in the political world today, everybody's talking about how high the energy costs are going, and one politician said it's all up to the states, the feds. We have nothing to do with that, and you're going like, excuse me, I believe it's the feds that are making us keep doubling what we're having to invest because we're having to keep Campbell open and those types of things. But I guess I'm just want to know. I mean, we're going to do what we have to do, but it's always nice to know that we're still very competitive to outside sources.
And so I guess I'll speak to that is during, so every 2 years, we do a surveillance review of our underlying rating from Standard & Poor's. During that, they always compare our rates to the state average, and so that's one measure that we evaluate against, and we continuously remain under the state average. And then during the business and credit risk assessment that MPPA does on an annual basis, they directly compare us to our nearest surrounding utility. And so we monitor that on an annual basis, and we'll see what comes in next year. But I guess what I'd say from a residential perspective, we maintain a pretty good difference, north of 20%, more cost effective than the surrounding IOU. I would also say, to your point, we have a very different business model. You go look at some investor-owned utility investor presentations. Those different business models become apparent very quickly. They're focused on very different things. They just have different dynamics at play. So I doubled down on we should focus on our cost and controlling what we can. But it's very much a good measure to look at what they're doing, because we would expect to come in continuously more competitive than based on the differences of our model, business model. And we've been here 5 years now. We've consistently maintained that separation over those 5 years, and I would anticipate continuing to maintain that difference moving forward. Specifically thinking about this rate increase, there's certain things that affect everybody. EWR requirements. The investor owners don't have the ability to implement their own program, so they're at the state mandated charge of $1.25. It's going to go up every year by 25 cents till it reaches $2. I don't see our individual charge escalating at that same rate. So when you look at individual components, we are impacted by the same laws, the same legislation, but we have different levers that we can pull, and I think we have the ability to utilize those levers more efficiently under our business model.
Yeah, I'm not normally supposed to say this, but my friend is served by an IOU in the area, and he gave me his bill, and I yesterday had a fun little time running the bill impacts. And I will just mirror what you said about the difference between the IOU, yeah, and your rates. So mine was around 30%. And this was before I was including your EWR, and the bills I was looking at did not have that.
We're doing well.
You're doing well.
Yeah.
So this, you just have to continue to put that message out.
Plug for the community impact report. We work very closely with UFS on the community impact report. Big value to this community by maintaining and retaining the public power utility over the last 129 years. So more another plug for UFS.
I didn't. You guys did a great job. Okay, any questions about what you're seeing here on residential? Anything that gives you pause, or something you'd like to see different?
So you're recommending a change of 1.8?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and in your board packet, you have the full rate design with each individual rate class, and that's ultimately what we'll ask for approval of, is the full rate design document, which goes through class by class. Jillian's talking, which that one was at a class level, but each class will have a slightly different ultimate billing.
Yes. So this is the residential bill impact at an average use of 700. It's about $2 a month. Remember, $1.15 of that is the EWR change. And everyone's it's a pretty tight, impact percentage wise across the board when you're looking at, usage patterns here. So anywhere from, $1.25 up to, $3.50 for these higher kilowatt hour users. Yes, okay. So, so what I'm looking for is really to know if you agree with the 1.6% adjustment, with 1.1% of that being EWR and 0.5% distribution side adjustment. And, the way that the rates are designed in the packet is within a 1% bandwidth. So no class getting higher than a 2.6 or lower than, no one is seeing a decrease with this adjustment, but, working within those bands.
So this rate design. So I guess I'm looking at what do we need to approve? So is it the 1.6 overall, or, so this is, you're talking about residential, we haven't gotten to commercial.
We talked about commercial, but they were just kind of all in the boxes. Not the problem, but, it's detailed in a little more in my memo. There's 2 documents in your board packet. We're looking for approval of both documents. One document is a rate design document, and that outlines the individual rate changes per class, that 0.5% plus the 1.1% overall as distributed through the different rate classes that Jillian laid out, and then also approve the EWR rate design. And I bring that up that I'm asking for approval of separate documents because in the rate design, Jillian's taken averages for the purposes of financial projections per rate class. But when you get into those tiered structures, it's more complicated than just looking at an average rate. So it's really 2 separate approvals. One approval is the rate design contained in the Lowell and Power rate design document. And then separately or additionally, approval of the EWR rates detailed in the Lowell and Power energy waste reduction rate development reports that are both in your board packet.
So my question is, are we at that point, or do you have more? That's all. Step on your toes. Let's, as a board, let's get this finalized.
And the other thing I'll say is there is no urgency to vote today. If the board's ready to vote today and doesn't want to see any additional changes or anything like that, you're welcome to take a vote today, but we positioned this one to try and come right on the heels of approving the EWR one. There's a lot of pieces to it, but wanted to try and get this in front of you all as soon as possible. So you're welcome to vote today. We also have available time to take and approve this at the December meeting.
I procrastinated enough. I don't see myself, I don't see any reason to delay this vote. I don't see us going back to Jillian and saying, hey, redo the whole thing, only we want something different. Again, I believe that my opinion is let's move forward. So if that's the rest of your opinion, I would entertain a motion.
Here's the thing. Rate increases are a serious thing, especially in this day and age when people are feeling, inflation of everything.
Sure.
And I hope that our ratepayers know how much due diligence that has been put into this. I don't think any of us like the idea of a rate hike, but in order for us to keep the cash levels that we need over the years, we need to do this.
I think it's in service of our customers. It's not in service of anybody else. And that's the benefit between public power and the investor-owned model is we're doing this to serve our customers, not to serve
Right,
profit-driven motives.
right.
Daniel, you are our resident,
Yeah.
motion,
I'm thinking how to word this one exactly. Move to approve the, what do you call the regular?
Rate designs.
The, you want to do them separate motions?
I think you could, I would say that's, you can do them in one, you can do them in two. It's up to,
I would move to approve, both components of the rate design, the normal
redesign.
rate design that AWR presented from, UFS in the board package as presented.
And I'll support it.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Jillian. You don't, if you want to stay, you can, but you don't have to. Take just a couple minute break.
Okay.
We're on.
Okay, we're back from break. We will go on to action items B.
All right, so this is actually a future action item. We will be coming back in December requesting board approval to move forward with this, but wanted to get into software evaluation and wanted to introduce kind of where we're at. Ultimately, Julie, Megan, struggling with names for some reason. Sorry. Julie, Megan, I'm looking at you thinking of Megan and backwards. So yes, I'm close. We've been obviously trying to keep the board updated of our progress as we evaluate software vendors. For the last couple of years, we've identified some major challenges with our current vendor and established a strategic initiative to evaluate where our long-term partnership should be from a software perspective. So wanted to just ultimately introduce NISC, the vendor that we unanimously come to the same conclusion would be the best fit for us. I want to talk a little bit about the process, introduce the company, and then just briefly introduce some of the expenses. I'll start with the expenses. As we talked about a little bit with Jillian, we're utilizing the equipment replacement fund this year to put away some funds for that future conversion. This is a heavy lift. We'll get into the specifics probably next month. We've got to be careful on what we share from how detailed we get in the financial side of things because we've signed NDAs and this is their business model. So we want to be mindful of not divulging too many of their trade secrets, their individual, what makes them competitive. But what I'll say is we are looking at around a $250,000 investment into the various components of an implementation. There's implementation costs, there's some hardware costs, there's some ongoing costs, there's early termination fees with our current vendor. So there's going to be a lot of components and some of the expense side of things will also be layered in over about a year and a half to 2 year long process. The actual expenses will be realized, but we started this process in the spring of 2024. So we've been doing, this has been on our minds for over a year and a half at this point. It was before that we identified the shortfallings, but spring of 2024, we established the strategic initiative to internally start evaluating our current software vendor and then identifying what else is out there, really. So last summer, around July, we started polling. We used the MMEA, Michigan Municipal Electric Association, and used that platform to reach out to other municipals and understand who they were using, what options there were out there. We knew kind of what we were looking for. We knew we wanted what's called an enterprise-wide solution. We don't want to be picking and choosing and going, hey, we want to use this vendor for one thing. We want to use this vendor. We wanted to get as many critical utility-specific software components under one umbrella. They talk better together. As a small staff, we regularly struggle with implementations. In most bigger utilities have dedicated staff to make sure the pieces talk together, that they all coordinate. Staff size that we have, we knew we needed an all-in-one solution that was incredibly comprehensive. So we initially started with 3 vendors back in August of last year as a follow-up to the MMEA survey that we put out. I also say from the MMEA survey, we are somewhat limited with the data because so many municipal electric systems are part of their city. They don't have the same independence that we have. So they have different considerations, and a lot of those utilities are on a platform called PSNA. That may sound familiar to you, Jim. That's what the city's on. It's very much a municipal government platform, not a utility-specific platform. Works great for the city. They can handle taxes and a lot of different things that we don't have, that don't fall under our purview. So the survey was insightful, but at the same time, it also highlighted that we are we're a little unique in the landscape. But it also presents opportunities. We ultimately eliminated one of those 3 vendors because of the limited scope of their services. So we identified 2 major vendors that really are the industry leaders, I would say, in providing enterprise-wide solutions. And before I get too far into this, I also want to say, please, as I'm going through this, ask Megan, did it again. Ask Julie, ask Megan, ask questions.
You've never done that.
I don't.
It's like your kids at home.
Switch sides.
I tell you, the first time you guys both come to a meeting, I can't keep my brain straight, so back to normal next month, geez, Pete.
That one and that one will work great.
I've not called anybody brewer yet, so.
Yep, you have.
You guys are doing better than both kids at this point. But please get them involved in the conversation. This has been a very long process. We're excited to reach this point in the process. But I really want to give the board confidence in the process that we took. So pick their brains. If there's things that you want to know, we have very diverse perspectives. We really approached this whole evaluation with just different focal points. And I kind of approached it looking as a big umbrella, big picture, long term. Julie and Megan did the same thing, but they know the nuts and bolts of the day-to-day that I don't have. I don't do a lot of the day-to-day work. They live in the day-to-day work. They know all the nuts, bolts, what buttons to click, what processes are critical, what we really need to make sure we're meeting our needs today and into the future. So very different perspectives. I thought it was awesome that we all unanimously came to the same conclusion, especially knowing that we're coming from different perspectives. But early this year, we eliminated one vendor because it wasn't quite what we needed. Then in January and March, we did multi-day demonstrations from both of those vendors. They sent their staff here. We spent 2 full days pretty much with both and ran through pretty much the enterprise solution. It's a great introduction. I guess really before that, we did some exploratory calls, exploring, is this a good fit? Is this not a good fit? So we had some feel out type of steps. Since then, in addition to the multi-day demonstrations in person, Julie and I were able to attend both of their major conferences. Julie was the second conference, the NISC conference. I wasn't able to stay for the entire duration, but I was able to make it for a day and had some really good conversations. It was a great use of our time, I will say. It was incredibly informative. So that was July and then September. But then we also, in the process, the 3 of us regrouped and identified critical processes that we wanted to go back and take a much deeper dive into, wanted to really understand. And that's really where that was their bread and butter. That critical processes. What are things that we really want to see growth in? Where are areas that we know we're struggling with? What are areas that we think vendors might struggle with? So we played those out and ultimately did deeper dives on those critical processes. And then ultimately that culminated late last month in an internal meeting where we established, before that, we established what are the different criteria that we want to evaluate these vendors on? What's our measurement tool? Independently, all 3 of us came to this October meeting and we'd all agreed to that the NISC was ultimately the best fit. So since then, we've continued to work with NISC to develop final proposals, evaluate any special needs, look at validations, and we've gotten down to what model receipt printer do we have, just to make sure that the compatibility is what we thought it was. And then again, culminating with tonight's presentation where we're going to kind of introduce who NISC is. And then next month, like I said, we'll be requesting the board and I put I put the language in the board packet, but there's gonna be a couple pieces to the motion. We'll ask for, authorization to execute the necessary documents to, effectuate the implementation of the NISC platform. And also, we'll seek authorization to, terminate the agreement with our current vendor. There will be early termination fees with our current vendor, but that's almost always something that, it's hard to time it otherwise. We can minimize some of the timeline, has minimized those early termination fees, but we're not naive to the fact that there may be some surprises from that vendor. We've been with them for a very long time. We've requested copies of all the contracts, and we're doing our due diligence on that end. But that's what we'll be looking for in the December board meeting. And why we're doing it in the December board meeting is if we can get all the paperwork signed before the end of the calendar year, there's an opportunity to save on some implementation costs that we get into those details next month. But again, that's why I wanted to really impress upon today that this is not something new. We're not, don't want the board to feel like we're springing it on you. We tried to keep the board kind of in tune with the steps that we've taken along the way. I've asked, I know Julie and Megan have included in the office report some snippets of the process along the way. If the board's ultimately comfortable making this decision next month, then there is an opportunity to save on some of those implementation costs, but also don't want to put the board in a position where they feel like they're making a rush decision. That's why I wanted to start by talking a little bit about the timeline and just what our due diligence efforts have looked like. So, any questions before I jump into the presentation?
Just, commentary is that, I've been in this world and I know how difficult it is to, have a piece of software that serves all of your needs very well all of the time. That's a unicorn.
Yeah.
I've seen situations where there's a tool that's incorporated with a piece of software that somebody could really be using, and they've had the software for like 5 years and they're not using it. And so, I've seen where, they take bits and pieces from other reports that they get and put it into an Excel spreadsheet to have to report stuff. I'm hoping that you're finding what you need to not have to deal with that stuff in the future.
Yes, and it's funny you bring up specifically reports, because we are looking at that's some of the critical processes, and not all of them have been a perfect fit by any means, but with NISC, there's an opportunity to make some incremental investments into the platform to get what specifically what we need out of it, which is one of the things that was attractive about NISC. All right, so we'll jump. Yeah, go ahead.
So I'll just comment. I'm not, it's probably more Daniel's field, being an accountant. I'm not an accountant. I put my trust in Charlie, Megan, and Julie, our staff. What they come back, and not that I don't need to see it, but it's like, you can say whatever you want, but it's that I'm going to go strongly by their recommendation. They're the ones that are working with it. They're gonna be the ones that are gonna be hands-on. None of us as board members are gonna be hands-on. The only one question I would have, and it's not really that pertinent, is does our accountants that do the audits, are they familiar with this? Have they seen this before? Have you talked to them? Have you talked to them about this new software? And that's the only part that interests me at all. The rest of it, is speaking a foreign language to me.
Yeah,
So-
we have it. Did you have that? I didn't.
No.
But I don't see that as a problem.
No.
So what I would
Directly
guess it's
deal
an
with
issue of
the
you guys just knowing what reports you want to be able to present to them, and does the system do that?
Right,
So the other-
we have
yeah, and what-
reports that print what we want.
Yeah.
Or not print, we don't print a lot.
Right,
like,
But
provide
report
them
what you want.
And then create the item that auditors need to balance and everything.
Right.
And we'll touch on it just a little bit. The unique thing, so our auditor works just in Michigan. We might be the only utility in Michigan currently on our current software.
Yeah.
And then we'll touch on who in Michigan is within ISC, and you'll start to see some differences there. But I would agree that it's more about, can we get the data that they ultimately want? One of the things that was attractive about NIC is the reporting capabilities are far more extensive. We're finding that we have to customize one of them, but that's to be expected along the way. It won't be the last one that we uncover. It's not quite what we want.
Right.
And for efficiency purposes, we're willing to make investments into the software to make sure it's doing what we need it to do. So I'll roll through this just pretty quick. I think it's important the board understand kind of who NISC is. We're going to try to keep it at a high level. But NISC is a cooperative. They turned 50 years old this year. We can go to the next slide. I'll roll through pretty quick. But the co-op, they provided this slide that the history of NISC is it really was formed by electric co-ops in that you see modeled in their structure, which is it's really great because the nice thing about a co-op is it's exactly that. It's a cooperative. All of the members are the owners, and everybody has a say. It's very similar to local government, very similar to the utility here, where the people making the decisions are ultimately people who are directly impacted by those decisions. The rate adjustment that was just approved, every board member, council members, they make those decisions and they impact them. So NISC as a cooperative business model, it allows them to focus on opportunities for enhancements, opportunities for development that benefits the members, not some third party investor or something like that. Next slide, please. Talk about the board. So the NISC is governed by a 14 member board. All board members are CEOs, general managers of electric utilities. Interestingly enough, the guy, Rick from Region 4, is our region, represents Michigan, Ohio, West Virginia, and Indiana. He's the general manager, CEO of the electric utility my dad lives on, I grew up on actually. Kind of neat, completely irrelevant to this discussion, but still neat. What is important is these are people in similar positions I am. These are the people ultimately shaping the direction of the utility or the co-op. Next, please. So another thing that was attractive to us is just the size of NISC. That more than 960 members, and of that, there's almost 700 utility members. And then they also serve broadband and telecoms. So they're involved in the telecom world. So they have about 255 broadband utilities. What I thought was great is they have customers in all 50 states, Canada, American Samoa, Palau. I'm probably not saying that right. I'm not geography's not going to serve me well tonight. Go to the next slide. This was another thing that was attractive to us. They average about 25 new implementations a year, and they've done that for the last 20 years. That's a heck of a track record of success. During the evaluation process, one of the things that we specifically asked of both of the vendors that we dealt with were, we want to talk to members that left the other software vendor and came to you and vice versa. We wanted to see how they directly competed against each other. What we found is you really didn't find members leaving NIC. So not only do they have consistent growth, it's not at the expense of losing existing customers. You know, some business models are all about growth, and it's all about the next customer. And sometimes you forget about the customer that joined last year. That's not the case with this group. They're very, very systematic, very methodical in how they manage their growth so that they're not prioritizing new growth over existing customers. And that was something that was definitely very attractive to us. Next slide. Here's just the NIC members. One thing I'll draw your attention to is Michigan, but you also see the concentration of members kind of in the Midwest in our region, which is great because there's a lot of support opportunities, a lot of education opportunities. They do regional workshops. So the continued learning, continued growth opportunities are significantly greater. Some of our staff they don't have the flexibility to go take 3 days and fly to Louisville or fly to Las Vegas. I think the conference is in Las Vegas next year. But these same staff members may be able to make it to a regional workshop down in Indiana or a regional workshop that's in Lansing or something more local. Next slide, please.
So why are so many of their members in West Michigan compared to East Michigan?
So part of that is if you think of like there's
Consumers.
it's a lot of your IOUs. So we'll get to the specifics next, actually, if you want to get. Yeah. So they serve all 9 co-ops in Michigan, and those tend to not be over on the east side. And then of the munis, there's 40 munis. Like I said, most munis are on a governmental account or governmental platform, BSNA.
Right.
Grand Haven and Marquette are both on NISC. Both converted to NISC, I'd say relatively recently, in the last 5 years or so. So NISC's original business model was very much more focused towards the co-ops. We happen to operate like a co-op a little bit more since we're single service, focused on electricity, independent board, things like that. So that's kind of why you see that disbursement in Michigan. But this was something that was important for us. We're the only, we used to not be the only member of our current software vendor in Michigan. There used to be another co-op, but since then they've ultimately gone to NISC, and now we're the last one at the table on our current software. So this will just give us opportunities. We've already worked some with Grand Haven to ask them how they do certain things with this software. So the networking opportunities are going to be.
And they're all open for that.
Oh, yes. At the munis, absolutely. And I would say the co-ops probably would as well, at least some of them, that would be open. And as we attend conferences and build relationships, it's really those one-on-one networking opportunities that provide so many opportunities for further discussion. So,
And the way it sounds to me too, that this company is accessible enough to where if enough people need a certain functionality, that perhaps you would be able to influence them to implement some changes that need to be done.
so full transparency, one of the things we're hoping, they're very progressive in their very aggressive development schedule. One of the things that it was one of the decision factors of what we evaluated was how receptive are they going to be to making adjustments for us? And really what we landed on is we need to fit a software vendor's box really well, more so than expecting them to cater to us. But that's the co-op mentality, though, is if the changes are good for the members, then they get prioritized. It's
So there's
development
consent
from within.
Yeah,
Yes.
of the users that the company gets, hey, oh, wow, they really need this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to be fair, both of the vendors that we looked at were cooperative structures. They're very much member focused. So we really had 2 great options to pick between. I felt good with either of them, and throughout the evaluation process, I think, you know, it kind of teetered back and forth depending on what day it was, depending on what new piece of information, but when we really step back and look at everything as a whole, this is where we landed, but it really wasn't that we had this shining light and then a dud. We were looking at two good options, and this just seems to be a better option. And part of it is that continuous development. We'll go next slide. So just interestingly, they're a really big company, 1,400 employees. And when I was at their conference, one of the things that I thought was interesting is I got an opportunity to sit down with the CEO of their company, and he's an accountant. This might be why it skewed them to. It's everybody at that company is an accountant, I think. Everybody we talked to was, oh, I came up as an accountant. So the accountants love this company. But no, I sat down with the CEO. He was an accountant. He's a numbers guy. And he was explaining to me that you know, the ratio of employees per member. He said when he first started, he's been there for 30 years, I think, almost. He said the ratio was something like 1.1, 1.2 employees per member. Well, now you saw that they're at 1,400 plus employees, 950 members. So they've actually grown their employee per member as they've grown their company. And like I said, one of the things that we're looking at is that steady, methodical, calculated growth strategy that doesn't prioritize new growth over existing customers. So as they've grown from a small company into this company that serves you know, almost 1,000 utilities with over 1,400 employees, they've maintained very similar ratios of employees to members. So they've been able to continue to focus on providing that same level of support. One of the things I thought was interesting during our demos, we actually talked with that employee from Holland. He demoed the GIS solution, I believe. Is that what it was? Actually, I'm saying, yeah, no.
Yeah.
They do have two main offices. One is in Lake St. Louis, and the other is in Mandan, North Dakota. They were originally the hubs of two different companies that ultimately came together to form an ISC. But I guess include this to show that they have employees scattered all over the place. I've personally actually been to their facility in Missouri. It's an incredibly impressive facility. They invest wisely in their infrastructure. Next slide. Financial strength. I'm not going to get too much into this, except for the fact that they invest a ton of money into R&D. To your point, that continuous growth, that continuous development is really important. And to be able to spend $65 million annually on research and development, they're very much staying at the front, the leading edge of the technology.
And they are a for-profit corporation, correct?
No, they're a co-op.
They,
Yeah.
they are a cooperative. I thought you were just, okay, I get it. Okay.
Yes.
You introduced that in the beginning, but I applied that to.
Now, I want to verify some things. I want to understand that dynamic better. But yes, they're as a cooperative, those returns are returned back to members, and gains are returned back to members. So
Okay.
yeah, that model very much aligns with the way we operate.
Right. Okay.
So they spend 20% of the revenue on R&D?
Yeah, and a lot of the other revenue goes to labor expense. Labor is one of the, I would say it was like 75% of their operating expense was labor. Next slide. And he sent me a note updating it. Their debt level is currently at $0. So they're carrying zero debt at the same time. Again, they're in incredibly stable financial position. That's great. I mean, one of the couple things that we're looking at is, you know, we talk enterprise solution. We'll get into some of the details, but all the way down to they have an actual print facility and mail center at their Lake St. Louis office. And right now, we currently print all our bills in-house. We have a bill stuffing machine. It's incredibly efficient to use their services. So part of the package is actually having them print all of our bills, mail our bills, instead of having to do that in-house. That frees up days a year, about 2 days a month are dedicated to various components in billing. So when we start talking efficiencies, it's huge.
And we share with the city a certain component
Yeah.
of that at the moment.
Yes.
Probably.
That we won't have a need for that folding machine anymore. So I'm going to reach out, and we'll get into the timeline. This implementation wouldn't start till early 2027. So we've got some time between now and then, but ultimately I want to approach the city and see what they want to do with that folding machine. It's currently housed in our building, but there's no reason not to send it back over to the city hall and let them house that. One of the things that was really important for us is support. And it's something that they prioritized and they really communicated heavily during their conference, and they're very proud of it. They're again, very much a continuous improvement type of organization, and they pride themselves on support. Yep.
So just going back to that, again, so our household, we get a printed bill, but does that take away? So occasionally we put flyers in the bills. I know we're gonna embrace change, but, does that have, so like the paperless billing, I mean, are they taking over the whole billing part of it? So they're doing the paperless and everything?
Everything, and from a bill insert position, we will have additional flexibility because, right now it's kind of an all or nothing thing. Every bill gets one or every bill doesn't get one. Because they have an incredibly sophisticated print room, we could choose to do residential only inserts. Hey, we're going to promote this residential program, just put it in the residential bills. Oh, we need to get an important message out to our commercial customers. Well, the residential customers don't have that. So they can handle printing, stuffing. We get bulk mail rates with them. I mean, across the board, our capabilities will be improved. So Smart Hub is it's their app. And I guess I should have also said, I'm very familiar with this company. This is, I was part of a conversion that at a previous community that we converted to NISC. So I operated in this platform for like my last 4 or 5 years, previous community when I was a little bit more in the day-to-day operations. Smart Hub is their app, their customer portal. But the other thing that's great is they have their own payment gateway. There will be tremendous payment processing savings, just by economies of scale, and leveraging the relationships that they have, significant cost savings in bill payment processing. And then, so I don't want to get too much into this, but when I saw enterprise solution, these are the things that are included. So it's everything financials related, whether that's general accounting, plan accounting, purchasing, material handling, and what you'll notice is like material management. We pursued a third-party material inventory system. It didn't implement well. There's always these, if you don't use it exactly in this fashion, it's not going to integrate the way you want. So when we looked at an enterprise-wide solution, it was important that they could provide all of these. When you get to service, that's kind of everything customer facing. And I'll say some of these things don't apply to us. Capital credits, that's a co-op thing. We just won't use it. We don't need it. It's part of the enterprise solution. Operations, that's everything from work management, mobile tickets, everything would go to tablet based. It'd be our mapping system. The proposal that that we'll ultimately present will pretty much be all encompassing. Right now, we use a third-party GIS software. We would be moving to NISC's mapping and staking software.
And you'd be able to, download the data from that system and
Mhm.
put it into the new system.
Yep, it's part of the implementation. You convert existing over into to the new. One of the things that I'm excited for is things like outage management. Right now, we don't have an outage management system. There's nothing for, customers can't go to our website and see where the outages are. It's always been a really tough hurdle to get over because we just don't have a ton of outages. So when you look at the value, you look at the cost and how frequently it's used, it's always been somewhat unattractive. But when you get into an enterprise-wide solution, you start leveraging synergies, you start leveraging economies of scale, and things become far more cost-effective to implement and streamline. It's not another vendor you're bringing in. It's not another integration. It's just seamless. The marketing side of things is really more geared towards their broadband customers, but there will be opportunities. And then across the bottom, you've got a call order, which is a board packet, specifically board packet software or platform. So I'll be honest, we didn't dig into it deep because it wasn't driving the decision by any means, but it's a huge bonus. We were always looking for opportunities to get better data, more data, whatever you all need to make effective decisions, and this is another opportunity for that. Document management. One of the coolest things that when everything talks to itself, almost everything is stored in a central document repository. So no matter where you're at in the system, you can always find the documents. Now I have to go ask somebody, hey, where do I find this old invoice? Hey, where is this? Where, it's it's going to help further our strategic goals of less and less paper, more and more efficiencies. iView app suites, just their mobile app. Something I'm really excited for too, that I think we're missing out with our current vendor is business intelligence and reporting. I know, Andrew, you're a big fan of database decisions. We are too, to be fair. But it's a tool that we're missing right now, and their platform is impressive. So there's just going to be new opportunities, and then multi-channel messenger. It's going to come with more opportunities to engage with our customers, more opportunities for our customers to conduct business with us the way they want to conduct business with us, instead of kind of a one-size-fits-all model. But happy to answer any questions. Kind of went through that
So,
fast and slow at the same time. Covered a lot.
so things that jump into my mind, so like outage management. So where does this fall in? Where does RP3 fall in? I mean, are we still having to do RP? Are we still doing is Zach still doing his reporting and everything through the APPA app, or does this take, again, I don't know what outage management really means. Does that?
So I think right now we're entering data into a portal. Outage management is a dynamic. It's our map. Customer calls in, hey, my lights are out. That software program starts immediately saying who's out, who isn't out. These 15 customers are out. The problem has to be this fuse. Oh, wait a second. There's a customer upstream from that. It's got to be the next device upstream. So what outage management will do is help pinpoint exactly who's out, and it's all visual. But right now we get a list. I'm sure you've seen the emails, and luckily Zach and all the guys can look at it and go, all right, it's Donna drive, it's this drive, it's that drive. We think we're going to go to this cutout. When you get into bigger storms, more widespread outages, it can get far more challenging, but outage management will help just do that, manage outages. At the same time, it will also allow us to put a customer-facing outage map out there. It will also keep track of the outage statistics that we're currently putting in APPA. And for RP3, you don't have to use the e-reliability platform, you just have to maintain your outage metrics. Their software platform, I used to do it in a previous community. At the end of the year, you hit run a report. Boom, here's your Sadie, here's your Katie, here's all that same information. So we retain all of the current capabilities, and then we build quite a few enhancements on top of that. That's not to say we've made a decision, hey, we're gonna continue using APPA's e-reliability platform, or we're not, but we will have additional functionality. We may still say it's just easier to use the safety or e-reliability because it also opens us up for national recognition, reliability, excellence in reliability, that type of thing. So there will be other components to those decisions. Any other questions?
My thing is I look at it from the implementation side for the girls, because they spend $65 million on R&D, which means they're a software company. How do they get those push outs to you for free upgrades? Is that all part of this? And then do they do it off hours, so it's not being affected the girls?
Sure.
Girls have an issue. They were great for the first month. Had somebody there all the time. Next thing you know, you gotta put in a ticket to IT for support. Then you're at the mercy of them getting back to you. So I hope their phone support is 24/7, for anybody on site during the day that needs that. That is really critical.
So story I can tell you is cascade, where everybody's got 1-2 layers of defense. Sometimes 3 and 4 layers fail. I was at a previous community. We got hit with a really bad storm. Our office, including all of our IT infrastructure, lost power. And then our backup generator failed to turn on, and we had about 80% of our system on the ground. So everybody was widely dispersed. And then we had a huge rack mount UPS that failed. So we just started cascading, and our entire, at that time, all of our servers were on-prem. Every one of them crashed. Spent 16 hours in the IT room on support on a Sunday with NISC support. We were back operational on Monday. They pride themselves on support. That's why they do support surveys and they continuously score very high on their support because it is incredibly critical. But the way that they manage releases, I believe they say they do 4 major releases a year. Maybe it was 2. I don't remember, but there's multiple major releases a year. They're all part of the ongoing support costs. So you're not buying a new version or anything like that. It's part of the monthly maintenance costs. They also put out really effective release notes ahead of time so that you do maximize the new features. Because a lot of times they'll add a bunch of features and you have to know to go activate them. They don't just throw stuff at you. So when you talk about the ease of implementation or you talk about the day-to-day operations, you don't have to worry about, we got a new version, what train wreck is going to be tomorrow. But yeah, all those releases and all those upgrades happen after hours. They are also accompanied with release notes, detailed release notes and high-level release notes. And then they also do like webinars, things, I don't remember what they call them, but
Yeah, they also talk about,
Online
they
training.
have a process where if something is new, they look at people that are not using the new. And
Yes.
say, okay, these people, we implemented this, they're not using it. Then they reach out to us and say, hey, did you know that the last upgrade included this and you can use this? And they'll explain it to you and give information about it. So that part was nice because sometimes you're in this cloud of all these new upgrades.
Right.
And, oh, well, we're not even working correctly. We're not worried about this other thing over here. But so it's nice that they kind of come back. Like they didn't really say how long, like 6 months later or a year later, but they definitely have someone that's kind of what they do.
Yeah, they do. They give you like a annual, I don't know if it's annual, semi-annual, almost like a scorecard of, hey, you're using 72% of what's available to you. Here are the things you're not using. So yeah, they're very big on making sure members embrace that continuous
Right.
improvements.
Well, that's their investment and they want to make
Right.
sure that you're
Yep.
using what they invested.
Yes.
Did you guys throw at them some ugliness that you said, you know, they really hate to, a customer comes in and says they want to do an audit for the past 6 months and they want it now, or, like worst case scenarios that you guys hate to do. And were they able to come back and go, oh, that's a piece of cake. This is what we do with our people and this is the system that we use. Have you done that? So I would say at a lot of the conferences where my mind goes, and you asked that, I guess, in a lot of other customers that I talked with, they spoke very highly of that. I felt like I didn't know what to ask. Like,
Okay.
I didn't know the software. I
Okay.
can't go in and say, did you run this in this report? I mean, I just talked to the customers that used it. And what did they say and what did they recommend? And they love their reporting and they love their support was two of the highest things that they had nothing bad to say about. So did I ask specifically if they have this report? Yeah, I'm working on that.
She's working on one right, she's working on one right now.
Well, it was good to see they had 4.85 stars out of 5. I mean,
Yeah,
don't know what they did. Maybe it wasn't
that's
them.
huge, right?
you know.
That's huge right there. Yeah, they
Exactly.
had 3,000 people at that conference.
Yeah.
3,000.
The conference it was interesting. Like normally it's, hey Julie, I'll meet you over here, right by where the vendor, the vendor hall, we'll go grab lunch or something. No, this one, it was like, hey, I'm around the corner, go to the 6th table, I'll be on the left, because otherwise there's just gobs of people everywhere. So, and it's all, and they're able to support that many, and that many people have positive things to say about them.
Yeah.
So when you talk about specific curveballs, what we do, we focus more on kind of those critical processes that
Right.
have and pain points that we have now.
Right.
Like, hey, this isn't going well. A good example is rate entry, just building the rates in the software. It was one of the things we really, the process we have now is a little cumbersome. It's not really conducive to confidence building. Julie and I sit down as a team every year and enter the rates and check each other's work constantly, because it's just not, you don't see everything on one screen.
And I understand that. However, you guys are on the same field. You guys are in the same sandbox. Everybody has really the same screwed up problems. You do in the same sector, because you guys are all, you try to grasp, okay, how the heck do I pull this out? What can I do to walk through this? It's the same scenario, and these people are going towards what you guys are selling. They're focused on this company because this company looks like everybody else. That's the reason why I asked specifically, what's your worst case scenario? And did you ask them that question? Because it's a funny thing that I sat in a meeting and I threw out 2 worst case scenarios, and they said, let me get back with you. And I'm holding them to it. You know what I'm saying? It's great that these people know what they're doing and they're putting their investment, and they're just gonna circle back and ask you, how come you're not using their system? But I want you to come back and say, this is what I really need right now, because we're in Lowell, Michigan, and we want this. So, you know what I'm saying?
I would say we don't have anything that unique. To your point,
Okay.
we're very, but I would say,
I do trust if you guys love these people, I trust that you guys, that where you went and you looked at the system, my goal would be, let's go with these people. But I do want you to, I would say we're very standard, and NISC is very above standard, and we want to be there. So we aren't I guess. We are getting by, but we don't want to just get by. We are always looking to be better, to look forward, to go on a better path. And I would say NISC is definitely how we're going to get there.
and we didn't necessarily talk about scenarios, but we did talk structure. Like one of their big drives in R&D is called it a data accessibility initiative, where instead of housing data in multiple different locations, different data centers, they're bringing everybody's data into a single set of data in a single, not everybody's, but all of our data is in a single location. So when you talk about dealing with these curveballs, these worst case scenarios, it's the worst case scenario is the thing you don't predict. It's the guy that walks in off the street and throws you a curveball that nobody's ever heard
But
of.
I do know that our customers would really love it when somebody says on Facebook, gosh, I don't have any power on Bowes Road. Does anybody know what's going on? And I can go blip, and, oh, well, gee, you guys mapped this to my app, and I'm looking at it and going, oh, okay, well, it's not gonna affect me. It's not gonna affect me because you guys are on top of it. It's not on my side of the river. It's not citywide.
Yeah.
So, and I love that deal.
And that's where
I
the
know
data,
customers ask about
yes,
that.
and that's where the data accessibility, whether that's for us and our ability to leverage that data for database decisions or leveraging AI to process that data, or the customer having access to that, all of those arenas are enhanced through NISC. Where right now we have, right now, some of those oddball requests, we might not be able to accommodate because we don't have that access to our data. So, I think we don't know what worst case scenario is, because right now, worst case scenario is we probably don't have the capability of doing it. Our confidence in being able to meet a customer's wants or needs with NIC ratchets up significantly compared to where we're at, or the other vendor we looked at. So we don't have specific answers, but I think we're positioned to address those situations much better with this platform over the current or the alternative that we looked at.
Mhm.
Any other thoughts, comments? All right, so just a reminder, next month, the goal was to bring back the formal proposal and ask for authorization to move forward with it. If you have specifics, which I get, this is so all encompassing, please reach out. If you want to nerd out over a potential opportunity, cool. Come sit down with us. We'll talk about it. We spent a year looking at this, so hopefully we've got good answers. And if not, the people we've dealt with have been, they're very responsive. There's been a lot of moving pieces. Julie's been working on one specific report for just going back and forth, exploring what options we have, things like that. So they're very responsive. If we don't have answers, or something you want to look at, let us know. Happy
Do you have a
to.
sample customer portal?
I don't.
Okay.
I've used it, actually have their app on my phone more
Okay.
likely than when I used to be a customer on their app. But,
Okay.
I'm sure my credentials are no longer good.
Yeah.
It's a significant enhancement over our current portal. Our current portal was functional. It serves its function, and that's about the nicest thing I could say. Most complimentary.
Moving on,
All right.
easements.
Easements, all right, Zach's here to answer any questions, but report back includes copy of a package of 7 easements. The easements are listed, there's project maps, there's easement maps in your board packet. None of this should be necessarily, the specifics are new, but the projects are projects we've talked about. Pending board approval tonight. My plan is to bring this to city council next Monday. Just as a reminder, what the board would do is formally accept these easements and recommend to city council their acceptance, because ultimately it is it's the city council's acceptance of these easements that makes them or enables them to be signed, executed, all that. So again, happy to get into any details. Zach's here, but we did work with our attorneys and Williams & Works to draft the easements, to get the survey drawings. So this is what we need to keep moving forward with our capital projects.
Any questions? And then I would entertain a motion to,
Make motion to accept the 4-year 2026 capital, project easements, to present to city council.
I'll support.
okay, it's been moved. Only thing is either my hearing is bad or I think you said 24, but it's 26.
I thought I said 26.
Okay. Maybe my-
It's the 70s, but there.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carried. I do have, and I should have brought this up, but I do have a deed that I want just quickly is I would like the board consensus. I talked about it with Charlie, so for holidays. We are coming up on Christmas and New Year's. After Thanksgiving, that Friday is a recognized holiday, so our office has off the 26th December and the day after the New Year's. It's on a Thursday. It's Friday. These 2 days are Friday. We only work a half a day, couple hours on Friday, and I would like consensus from the board to get these 2 days, this partial days on that Friday, day after Christmas and the day after Thanksgiving off, so that families and our employees can plan in advance, so that gives them a super long weekend. I love that. To go see family and everything. And again, it's in the whole scheme of thing, it's not full days because we only work half our office staff. And it's different between the lineman and the office, but
Just Casey.
this, well, just basically.
But I would, Charlie, that's what the staff needs and, how to meet those.
Right.
So,
But I didn't want this to be a Perry and Charlie decision. I wanted the rest of the board to weigh in on it. And I think it just can be consensus. I don't think it needs to go to a formal vote. If anybody has an issue with it, speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'll extend a thank you to the whole board from the entire employee base. There will be 0 people disappointed at that news, so thank you all very much. All right, we will jump in, I guess, ready to go to information items. All right, we'll jump into just a fiscal year-end financial review. As a follow-up to the audit, we had Matt in last month to present the audit. Megan pulled together just some different graphs just to show some more longer-term trends. These were all in your packet. I encourage you to review these on your own as well. Follow up with us with any questions, but I'll hit some high level stuff. I'll ask you to go up one more. The only thing I'll highlight here is, really leading up to 2020, things were relatively stable, and you can see that curve is no longer quite as stable, but it's steady and it's manageable. Again, none of this should be a surprise. We would talk about this on an annual basis, but I think it's important to rapidly see these longer term trends all in some one graphical representation. So moving on to last year's breakdown of expenses, really the big takeaway here, Jillian touched on it. I know she said 70% of operating expenses. What are we including here that she wasn't including? Pilot, that's what I figured, yeah. So you see power supply dominates our expenses. 57.5% of all of our operating expenses, including pilot, went to power supply last year. And then you'll see some more trends in the next graph year over year. So again, you see The only thing I want to highlight here is you see that volatility in the biggest bar there. If you look to the lower side of things, you see far more stability. Those are the things that we have just more control over, honestly. Power supply, I don't say we're beholden to the market, but there are, it's why we implement and utilize a portfolio theory on power supply, because there's so much volatility. But when you get down to some of the other expenses that we run into, we want to see far more consistency year over year, and that's what you see in the graphs here. All right, we'll go to the next. And again, this is changes in purchase power. The biggest bar there, that blue one, is Campbell, and you see kind of what we thought was the down ramp, ratchet back up, but again, not much to see here except for, some bigger long-term trends. You see that upward trajectory of our renewables that's working towards renewable energy goals, clean energy goals. You also see, that energy services project, the light blue, is kind of all over the place. That's our market balancing. Again, helps capture some of that volatility in the market itself. But here your kind of long-term trends over that power supply.
What's CT?
That's the Kalkaskis combustion turbine. Yeah, so natural gas plant. All right, and please stop me at any time if there's any questions. Like I said, these are just kind of some high-level graphs. Change in net position, again, that kind of coming off that 2022. We're seeing some elevated net positions, but again, that's funding that cash replacement or the cash management plan. It's also funding capital improvement plans. So as we've seen costs go up, that capital improvement plan has expanded, and then also as we've needed to grow cash in order to continue to maintain appropriate reserves, we've needed to see some increases in that change in that position. And then cash follows that. You see, as Jillian, I'm not going to hit too much on this. We talked a lot about cash management with Jillian, and you see that increase in cash that aligns with the increase in our expenses, and also aligns with the necessary reserves that are detailed by UFS during our annual engagement with them. And then per our board approved policy, we also report out on key financial indicators on an annual basis. Again, happy to get into any of these details, but we're hitting each of our marks this year. It doesn't always happen that way. There's times that you have blips in the radar, whether it's investment capital compared to depreciation, or we saw the minimum days of cash kind of dip at one point, but each of the financial indicators we're sitting in a healthy position. So move through that pretty quick. Been here for 2.5 hours. Happy to answer any questions, but also didn't want to just ramble on things that aren't necessarily on your mind. All right, cool. We'll roll on to performance data. I hit on a lot of the same trends here. I don't really have a ton to add in the sales. Please check out the trends, take a look at things. These are things that we watch over the course of the year, but there may not necessarily be things to draw on a monthly basis, and you could draw on it on a monthly basis by all means. But a lot of the trends, especially as Megan stops here, tied to residential, a lot of it's tied to the weather. We had warm July, August, and now we're back into more normal season. So you start to see some of that weather variability. Cost per kilowatt hour, we're in the time of year where you see decreased consumption. So those fixed charges are spread across fewer kilowatt hours. So you do see a typical increase, especially at the residential level. But as your industrial customers or the customers that use more, they have more to spread those fixed costs over. So you're seeing some actual downward in the average cost per kilowatt hour. Cash, we did see an erosion of cash this past month. We'll get into that just a little bit during capital projects, but large drivers there are capital projects. And last month was also a free payroll month. Anything else to add?
Oh, got it.
I didn't really have anything else except for the PCA. The last graph, you're starting to see, we saw a reduction in our PCA. Last month, we saw a reduction in PCA revenue, but the PCA itself was still going up. This is the first month that we saw an actual reduction in the charge itself, which is ultimately what we want to see. And that is performance data. Normally I'd hand it over to Zach for an outage report. Don't necessarily have that outage report. I'll ask Zach to touch on anything he sees as important, but APPA is in the process of migrating platform to a new platform, and it's just all of our data is not available right now. So I don't know if there's anything you want to touch on, Zach.
Yeah, we had the voltage conversion and went fantastic. Minor little problem, but it really didn't affect the project at all. Except for later that night, one of the brand new transformers decided to go bad on the secondary side. So we had to replace that transformer for that night. Had a raccoon and a squirrel on 28th Street, and that's pretty much it for the month.
Yeah, so unfortunately, yeah, the voltage conversion outage was a disappointment, but you know, we check everything. It's just not sure what we could have done differently to catch that ahead of time. I mean, it held for 12 hours.
Yeah,
And
it held for quite a long time.
yeah, it's out there. All right, there's your outage report. Questions for Zach?
On the 17th, we'll get all of our outage data back. So next month should be good to go.
Awesome, thank you. Income statement. It's that time of year, net income was just barely positive, a little behind budget, but if you look at across the year, we're not trending like we were last year, but last year we had a lot of PCA revenue as we had it was recovering from the previous year. But we're sitting in a really healthy position. Revenues coming in slightly over budget, which is great. Expenses are coming in slightly over budget, but again, we're inside of relatively normal variances, and some of the other expenses that I highlighted in some previous months continue to come into more alignment as we move along throughout the year. So any questions or comments on the income statement? All right. This is where I'll touch on. If you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see a lot of that cash. Or I guess we'll go to the next page. It's a little easier to see there. That current month spend, you'll notice that a lot of things are happening. CAT related projects we continue to move forward with. That capital equipment, we paid for a lot of transformers last month. As the board will recall, we placed some big transformer orders that were part of this year's capital budget. They pretty much all come in, and the metric transformer that we sent off to be rebuilt that was damaged during the outage, we were hoping was going to come in last fiscal year. So that was not included in this year's budget. Timing did not work out that way. It took a little bit longer. So that was I believe a $16,000 repair on that transformer, and that it's here as well, correct? Yeah.
Correct.
So there will be some more capital equipment that still needs to hit. You'll notice we are already over budget. Again, I'll remind the board that with the capital projects this year, there are certain expenses that are coming in over budget. It's something that we're going to continue to monitor throughout the year and continue to make progress on all the projects. So we know other projects will come in under budget. We anticipate some aid to construction revenue that will help offset some other expenses. So we just continue to move forward and monitor on a monthly basis. Any questions on the capital projects? All right. Hand it over to Zach for a distribution report.
I stand by my report.
All right, that's easy. Casey, you're up.
I stand by my report.
All right. I don't know who's tag teaming this one.
I think both of us stand by the report.
All right, and I would just remind, please read through these. I cannot reiterate how much awesome things are happening right now. Read through the report. The office staff has multiple significant strategic initiatives that are underway. Broker evaluation, preparing for the customer survey next year. Working with third party on crisis communication planning. Casey from 14 different loops over the last, or curveballs over the last week. He's been tackling IT challenges, wrapping up SCADA and projects over here. There's a lot of stuff going on. Zach's and his crew's making awesome progress on voltage conversions, and I'm probably forgetting quite a bit of things that are going on. Like the school tours were a huge success. The substation maintenance, the efforts that Casey led. Please take the time. If you don't read anything else in the packet, read these reports. I couldn't be more proud of the work that's being done right now. So please make sure you read.
How did your tour go today?
Yeah, we're
We're gonna see that in your next month's report. I stand by it and we'll see what you say.
Yeah, that's a little different than, they weren't here.
Oh,
We
okay.
were at your.
That's what I'm saying. You went there. Yeah, yeah.
All right, so my report.
You stand by
I
it.
was gonna say,
I can't quite do that because you can't pass up Mark Grove's 26th anniversary. 26 years of service is something to commend for sure. But I do also want to highlight that cybersecurity training is going to be issued tomorrow. So please be on the lookout for that. There's a ton of good stuff happening at MPPA. Please read through that. The MMEA Fall Conference went fantastic. And I did want to specifically draw attention to, we have issued, or From has issued their first assistance payment through the Lowell Energy Outreach, the LEO program. And the office staff is in ongoing communications about additional assistance. So we're starting to see how that process is going to flow. There will be things that we need to tweak. There will be things that we need to work on. We've already had some back and forth, but can't say enough good things about working with From. And I also did want to provide an update for the board on the solar grant. I was not able to attend, but the Attorney General had a listening session with some impacted parties, and the state of Michigan has joined multiple lawsuits trying to restore the Solar for All funding. I've shared some of my thoughts. I think we still have some challenges, even if the funding is restored. But I want to make sure the board stays abreast of any updates there, because it could potentially open back up. And then we get into the pictures. We had an awesome turnout at the Harvest Fest. We gave away, we got thrown for some curveballs. Can't thank Jim enough. Had a blast hanging out with you, Jim. Jim and I handled the roping people in and making sure people come say hi to us job, but had a great turnout, gave away 300.
250 to 300.
250.
Well, I don't think we ever counted the official gas containers, so.
3 different containers.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I said today that we had over 500 people,
And were they
including
all
their parents and grandparents, come on the boat.
Heidi's donates all of the
So,
pumpkins every
good.
year.
Advertising for us and you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great.
Those aren't really teeny pumpkins. Those
No,
are
there was.
No, they
They were
messed
a
up.
little bit bigger this year.
They had 4 crates of smaller pumpkins, but they ended up giving them to somebody else, so when that crew came with the crates, I mean, they were huge.
They were bigger.
And they
Yeah,
just-
much bigger,
and
yeah.
Just this
They just,
thousands.
yeah, they just plowed all the rest of them into the
Yeah,
fields.
and they bought another one, so I was great.
No, Heidi's is amazing. The showboat the showboat crew, is awesome to work with. That's quickly turning into one of my favorite events that we do every year.
Mhm.
The office staff does a great job getting everything set up.
Weather cooperated too, it wasn't rain.
Yeah, I mean, it helped. But it really is, just to do the pumpkins as a team effort. We had a guy the morning of, Harvest Fest down at Heidi's picking up more pumpkins and dropping them off.
Mhm.
The office staff was getting ready. They did a touch of truck up there that,
Right, that was great.
yeah, that Steve Shade volunteered to go up there and it really is a team effort to get back to the community and it's a lot of fun. And then the school tours, those are fantastic. I love doing the school tours. Casey leads up a lot of those efforts and does a great job. Zach's crew, and Zach get involved and they do a fantastic job. So can't say enough good things about, what's being captured in the pictures here.
Yeah.
Those are some of our employees' heroes in there as well. So when we get to see some of the kiddos stop by.
Mhm.
And then Chairperson, I will hand it back to you for the scheduled meetings and the wrap up.
Okay, next regular board meeting, December 9th. Board comments. Are you ready, Craig? We're gonna go. Let's change things up, man.
Yeah, talked about whatever I need to talk about earlier, but yeah, I just want to acknowledge 26 years for Mark. Congratulations, thank you.
Daniel,
I got nothing. Sorry.
in your,
Too long.
are you in your new house yet?
Nope.
Looks fantastic.
Yeah. We're closing in 2 weeks. So, so that'll be fun, yes. Yeah, just walked up there, just before the meeting, just to check on where the fence will be. So, just like things like that. I was gonna say that feels like forever ago that I met Amanda. And that was 2 days after Mark started working here. So, he's had quite a career.
Great.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah,
That it? That's enough, right?
that's it, yeah.
Jim,
It was a tight election. You guys might be stuck with me for another 4 years, so we'll find out what happens. So I'll try to at least be here.
Congrats.
That's it.
Congratulations,
And
Jim.
thanks for whoever supported for me. I'm not sure who in the room or didn't, but thank you if you did.
Mhm.
I'll have to win your trust when I'm sitting on that council for those that didn't.
Tina,
I have nothing.
okay, yeah, congratulations to Mark. Mark hopefully continues for a short time yet. Great employee, and he has 100 different skill sets, just not just the electric side of it, but doing concrete for low light. I mean, he just has a huge list of assets and, thank Mark a lot. The other is, you put a plug in for the A+ program. I hope to continue to see the A+ program continue to grow. And again, for the public out there, if you're looking for some place to donate before the end of the year, think about the A+ program. It helps those in need in our community for the power cost, and that is serviced through FROM. We contribute to that, but it's we don't judge or say who gets the funding or anything. That's all done. That's FROM's expertise, and we leave it up to FROM.
So
So
that just goes to electric use, people that need help with electric, not like the Leo program that can also offset gas things. So the AA plus is just for that.
Yep,
Yep.
and it gives, and it has, again, it's not as defined, it allows more flexibility. And it goes to help those, and those that wish, you can even, put on set it up with low light and power for, on your bill, 5 months every pay period, $10 or whatever you want, or round up or whatever, but, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that we, continue low light and power to match that up to $10,000. Total, not per person or whatever, but, so it's a good place to donate, because your donation is matched by low light and power, and it helps those. With that, the other is, I would say to the community, be kind, in today's age and what's going on out in the world, all I can say is, help one another, help fellow mankind, and be kind to one another. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I moved.
Supported. It's been moved, supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried.